What if the smallest mistake of your life became the reason a dangerous man could never forget you? Nora Parker wasn't looking for trouble that night. She was just a quiet accountant in a borrowed dress standing beneath crystal chandeliers at a mansion in Lake Forest, trying not to feel invisible. Then, one nervous step, one trembling hand, and one glass of champagne changed everything. The drink spilled across the black suit of Gabriel Moretti, the most feared man in Chicago. But this story isn't just about a ruined suit. It's about power, loneliness, control, and the dangerous difference between being protected and being possessed. Stay until the end, because one accident will open the door to a love story built on secrets, fear, and impossible choices. Like this video and comment where you're watching from. Before the rain, before the headlights, before her name became something whispered in rooms where men did not forgive mistakes, Nora Parker was just trying to survive a party. That was all. No secrets, no black cars waiting at the curb, no powerful man saying her name like he had already decided it belonged in his life. Just a Saturday evening in Chicago, a borrowed dress on her bed and a zipper that refused to close. Nora stood barefoot in her small Logan Square apartment, twisted sideways in front of the mirror, one hand reaching behind her back while the other held the phone against her ear. The dress was navy blue, simple, elegant in a way that looked effortless on other women, and slightly apologetic on her. Her cousin Madison had called it classic. Nora knew that meant plain. Her mother's voice crackled through the speaker. "Nora, honey, you still there? I'm here," Nora said, tugging at the zipper again. "I'm also losing a fight with this dress. Do you want me to come over?" "No, I want the dress to understand reason." Elaine Parker sighed with the kind of patience only mothers had. "You cannot skip this party." Nora looked around her apartment as if the room might offer her an excuse. The kitchen sink held one coffee mug and a spoon. Her laptop sat open on the tiny dining table, the pale glow of a spreadsheet filling the screen. A stack of unpaid bills hid beneath a grocery store coupon booklet. On the windowsill, a basil plant leaned toward the glass like it too was trying to escape. "I can send Madison a nice message," Nora said. "Maybe a gift card. It is her engagement party, not a retirement lunch. I know. And she invited the whole family. She invited the whole family because she wants the whole family to see the mansion." Elaine went quiet. Nora regretted it immediately. Her mother had never liked when Nora sounded bitter, even when bitterness had been earned in small, quiet ways. Madison Vale had always been the pretty cousin, the polished cousin, the cousin whose life seemed edited before anyone saw it. She wore white silk without spilling coffee. She smiled in photographs like the camera owed her money. She had grown up on the same family stories as Nora, but somehow Madison had turned them into charm, while Nora had turned them into an anxious habit of apologizing before she spoke. "She is still family," Elaine said. Nora touched the edge of the dresser. On top of it sat a framed photograph of her father at a summer barbecue, sunburned and smiling, holding a paper plate piled with corn and ribs. He had been gone for 7 years, but there were moments when Nora still expected him to call from the next room and tell everyone to stop making such a big deal out of things. Elaine's voice softened. "Your dad would have wanted you to show up." That did it. Nora closed her eyes. "Low blow, Mom. I know. I learned from the best." Nora laughed under her breath, but the sound came out thin. She managed the zipper after 3 more tries, then stepped back from the mirror. The dress fit better than she expected. That almost made it worse. She looked like someone pretending to belong somewhere expensive. "Do I have to make small talk?" she asked. "Yes, with rich people only until dessert." "What if they ask what I do?" "Tell them the truth. I work with invoices and freight expenses. You make sure people do not steal from the company." "That sounds more exciting than it is." "Then say it that way." Nora smiled despite herself. A car horn honked somewhere below her window. Outside, the city was turning gold at the edges. Late afternoon light slipped between brick buildings, fire escapes, and parked cars with old snow crusted near the tires. Chicago in early spring was still deciding whether to forgive winter. Nora put on the only heels she owned, grabbed her coat, and took one last look at the apartment. It was small, safe, and hers. The kind of place nobody noticed. The kind of place where she could be invisible in peace. Then she stepped out and locked the door behind her. The ride to Lake Forest felt like crossing into another life. The city slowly loosened around her, Brick storefronts gave way to wide roads, quiet neighborhoods, darker trees. The houses grew larger then farther apart, until the world outside the car windows seemed designed for people who never had to check their bank balance before ordering dinner. Nora watched her reflection in the glass. The borrowed dress, the careful makeup, the nervous hands folded too tightly in her lap. Her driver glanced at her through the mirror. Big event. My cousin's engagement party. Nice. Depends who you ask. He chuckled, then turned onto a private road lined with old oaks and iron lamps. At the end of it, the Whitcomb estate rose out of the dusk like something from a magazine left open on a coffee table. Stone walls, tall windows, wide steps glowing with candlelight. A fountain murmuring in the circular drive as valet attendants moved between luxury cars with practiced smiles. Nora's stomach dropped. A woman in a silver gown stepped from a sleek white car and adjusted a diamond bracelet as if diamonds were weather. A man behind her laughed into his phone saying something about a merger in New York. Somewhere near the entrance, a photographer's flash lit the air. Nora almost told the driver to keep going. Instead, she thanked him twice and stepped out into the cold. Music drifted from inside, strings soft and elegant, the kind of music that made even breathing feel underdressed. At the door, a man checked her name on a tablet. Nora Parker, she said. He scrolled, then nodded. Welcome, Miss Parker. Miss Parker sounded like someone with a trust fund and opinions about marble. Nora murmured thanks and entered the mansion. The foyer opened into a ballroom bright enough to make her blink. Crystal chandeliers spilled light over polished floors. White flowers climbed the stair railings. Champagne towers shimmered beside long tables of oysters, tiny pastries, and things Nora could not identify but knew she could not afford to drop. People filled the room in soft waves of perfume, laughter, and money. Nora stood near the entrance coat, still on, trying to locate a familiar face. Nora Madison Vale appeared in a cloud of ivory silk. She was glowing. Of course she was glowing. Her engagement ring flashed as she lifted both hands and pulled Nora into a careful hug that did not disturb her hair. You came, Madison said, as if Nora had crossed an ocean instead of 40 minutes of traffic. Congratulations, Nora said. The place looks beautiful. Madison turned slightly, letting Nora see the room as if she had personally built every wall. Isn't it perfect Carter's family knows everyone, so the guest list got a little out of control. A little out of control meant 200 people and a champagne tower taller than Nora's refrigerator. Madison's eyes flicked over Nora's dress. That color is nice on you. Thank you. Very practical. There it was. Nora smiled because she had years of practice. Madison leaned in. Just relax tonight, okay? Have fun, talk to people. You never know who you might meet. I'm not really here to meet anyone. That's your problem. Nora's smile tightened. Before she could answer, Madison was swept away by a group of women who smelled like gardenias and looked like they had never been emotionally damaged by fluorescent office lighting. Nora drifted toward the edge of the room. A waiter offered her champagne. She took a glass because empty hands made her feel too exposed. She moved through the ballroom, slowly nodding at relatives she barely recognized. An aunt kissed her cheek and asked whether she was seeing anyone. A cousin's husband asked if accounting was being replaced by artificial intelligence. Someone else said, "You're Elaine's quiet daughter, right?" Nora kept smiling. Quiet daughter, practical dress, payroll girl. She sipped champagne and felt the bubbles sting her throat. Near the fireplace, 2 women glanced at her shoes. One whispered not quietly enough. Madison said she works in logistics. The other laughed. Like shipping boxes, Nora looked down into her glass. She imagined placing it on a table, walking out, calling a ride, and being home before the main toast. Then she thought of her mother, her father's picture, family. She stayed. The ballroom became warmer, louder, tighter. Conversation pressed against her from every side. Engagement parties, Nora decided, were just networking events with flowers and better lighting. After 20 minutes, she needed air. She slipped away through a side archway, hoping to find a bathroom or a quiet corner where no one would ask her about her career path. The music faded behind her as she entered a long hallway lined with portraits of stern-looking men who had probably owned banks, railroads, or other people's futures. The house was deeper than it looked from outside. One corridor led to another, each quieter than the last. Nora passed a library with leather chairs, a sitting room lit by a single lamp and a glass door that opened onto a terrace. She thought about stepping outside but saw guests smoking near the garden wall, so she kept walking. That was her first mistake. Her second was believing rich people labeled doors. She turned left into another hallway and realized the carpet had changed. Less decorative, more private. The laughter from the party was gone now, replaced by the low hum of voices behind a half-open door. Nora slowed. She knew she should turn around. Then she heard one sentence that made her stop. "The DeMarcos will not accept a legal transition. Not without blood." The voice was older, rough around the edges. Another voice answered lower and calmer. "Then they can choke on their traditions." Nora froze with her champagne glass halfway to her mouth. That voice did not belong to the party. It belonged to dark rooms, locked drawers, and men who did not repeat themselves. A third man spoke. "Gabriel, this is not a boardroom disagreement. Adrian DeMarco does not negotiate when he feels cornered." The calm voice returned. "Good. I'm tired of pretending he's worth negotiating with." Nora's pulse climbed. She stepped back, careful, silent. Her heel caught the edge of the carpet. She stumbled into a passing server carrying a tray of fresh champagne. "Oh," Nora gasped. The server jerked sideways. One glass tipped. Nora grabbed for it, making everything worse. Cold champagne splashed over her fingers, down her wrist, and across the front of her dress. The server apologized. Nora apologized harder. Then she turned still, clutching her own glass, and collided with a wall. Not a wall. A man. Champagne flew from her glass in a bright arc and struck the front of his black suit. The hallway went completely still. Nora stared at the spreading stain. Then, slowly, painfully, she looked up. The man was tall. Not just tall in height, but in presence. He had dark hair combed back from a sharp face, a clean jaw, and eyes so controlled they made panic feel childish. His suit was black, perfectly cut now, ruined across the chest and lapel by a trembling woman who looked like she wanted the floor to open beneath her. Behind him stood two other men, one older, silver-haired with hard eyes, one younger, built like security, one hand already near his jacket. Nora swallowed. "I am so sorry." The man said nothing. The silence grew teeth. Nora lifted both hands, then remembered one still held an empty glass. "I didn't see you. Obviously I didn't see you, because if I had seen you, I would not have walked directly into you with a beverage." His gaze moved from the stain to her face. Nora's skin burned. "I can pay for cleaning," she said quickly. "Not tonight. Not in cash. I do not usually carry enough cash for what I assume is an emergency involving fabric at this level, but I can make payments." The older man's eyebrows lifted. The security man looked confused. The man in the ruined suit remained unreadable. Nora continued because fear had apparently unlocked a part of her brain with no exit. "I'm an accountant, so I can make a schedule. Not a weird schedule, a normal one, with dates, and interest if that is required. Although I hope it isn't, because this was an accident, not a loan." For one impossible second, the corner of the man's mouth moved. Not quite a smile, something more dangerous because it almost was. "What's your name?" he asked. His voice was the one from behind the door. Calm, low, certain. "Nora," she said. "Nora Parker." He repeated it. Nora Parker. No one had ever made her name sound like a decision before. She tried to breathe normally. "And you are—" The older man made a small sound like she had stepped on a live wire. The man in the suit studied her. "You don't know." Nora glanced at the champagne stain, then back at him. "Should I?" His eyes sharpened, not with anger, but curiosity. "Most people here do. I am not most people here." The words escaped before she could soften them. The hallway held its breath. Then the man looked down at his ruined suit again. "No," he said. "You are not." Nora could not tell if that was good or very bad. The security man took half a step forward. "Mr. Moretti, we should handle this. Moretti." The name hit the older man first, then the air, then Nora. She had heard it somewhere. Not in a friendly way, in half-conversations, news headlines, men in suits leaving federal buildings, a whispered warning from someone who lowered their voice even when speaking indoors. Gabriel Moretti. Her chest tightened. The man watched recognition arrive on her face. "There it is," he said softly. Nora forced herself not to step back. "I still ruined your suit," she said. That almost smile returned faint as a match struck in the dark. "Yes," Gabriel Moretti said. "You did. I'm sorry. You already said that. I can say it again. I believe you." Something about the way he said it made her look at him more carefully. Most men with power enjoyed apologies. They stretched them out, made women kneel inside their embarrassment. Gabriel did not. He seemed less interested in punishing her than in understanding why she had not performed fear correctly. From the ballroom, a burst of laughter drifted down the hall and died before it reached them. Nora tightened her fingers around the empty glass. "I should go." Gabriel stepped aside. He did not touch her, did not block her, did not raise his voice. That somehow made him more intimidating. Nora moved past him, careful not to brush his sleeve again. She made it 5 steps before he spoke. "Nora Parker." She stopped. His voice slipped through the hallway like a hand closing around a secret. "Yes, keep your payment schedule." She turned back. I should his eyes held hers. I want to see how an honest woman calculates disaster. Nora did not know what to say to that, so she said the only thing her nervous mind could find. "I use spreadsheets." This time Gabriel Moretti smiled. Not wide, not warm, but real enough to change the temperature of the hallway. Nora fled. By the time she found the ballroom again, her heart was pounding so hard she could barely hear the music. The room seemed louder now, brighter, full of people who did not know she had just committed social suicide against a man whose name could empty conversations. Madison caught her near the champagne tower. "There you are. Where did you go? I got lost." Madison's gaze dropped to Nora's damp dress. "What happened, Champagne? On you. Not only on me." Madison's smile faded. Nora glanced toward the hallway before she could stop herself. Madison followed her look. At the edge of the ballroom, Gabriel Moretti appeared. He had not changed jackets. The champagne stain still marked the front of his suit. Somehow it made him look even more dangerous, as if the damage had been permitted only because he had allowed it. The room reacted before anyone spoke. Conversation softened. A man near the bar straightened his posture. A woman turned away too quickly, then pretended she had not. Space opened around Gabriel without him asking for it. Madison gripped Nora's arm. "Nora, what? Tell me you did not talk to him." Nora's mouth went dry. "I may have apologized to him." Madison stared. For what Nora looked at the champagne stain across the room. Madison saw it. Her face changed completely. "Oh my God. It was an accident. Nora, I offered to pay for cleaning." Madison made a strangled sound. "You offered Gabriel Moretti dry cleaning money." He was very calm about it. That does not mean good things. Nora looked across the ballroom again. Gabriel was speaking to the older man from the hallway, but his gaze shifted once, only once, and found her. It was not a glance. It was a mark. Madison leaned close, voice low and urgent. "Listen to me. His family is not just rich. They are dangerous rich. They own restaurants, unions, construction firms, judges, cops, God knows what else. People do not spill drinks on Gabriel Moretti and become a funny story." Nora tried to laugh, but it got stuck. "You are exaggerating. I am not." Madison's hand tightened. "My fiancé's father warned people not to bring up the Morettis tonight. That is how powerful they are. You do not mention them unless they mention you first." Nora looked down at her wet dress. All at once the mansion felt smaller. The chandelier light pressed too hard. The music sounded too sweet. Every laugh seemed like it belonged to someone who understood rules she had never been taught. "I apologized," Nora whispered. Madison looked frightened enough to make Nora more afraid. Sometimes that is not enough. Across the room, Gabriel accepted a glass of water from a waiter. He did not drink it. He held it while men approached him and then seemed to regret it halfway there. His face remained calm, polite, impossible to read. Nora had seen powerful men before. Madison's parties were full of them. Men who entered rooms, loudly laughed too hard, displayed their watches, touched women's backs without asking. Gabriel was different. He did not need to announce power. The room announced it for him. Nora set her empty glass on a passing tray. "I'm going home." Madison did not argue. That scared Nora most of all. She slipped toward the foyer, careful to avoid the hallway where everything had happened. A maid brought her coat. Nora thanked her with too much gratitude, then stepped outside into the cold night. The air hit her face like water. She stood near the fountain and opened her phone with shaking fingers. No cars nearby. The nearest ride was 12 minutes away. Of course. Behind her, the party glowed through tall windows. Inside, people laughed under chandeliers. Outside, Nora stood alone in a navy dress with champagne drying at the hem and the name Gabriel Moretti beating through her mind like a warning. A valet glanced at her. "Waiting for a car, miss. Yes, thank you." Her phone slipped in her damp hand. She caught it against her chest. Headlights swept across the drive. A black SUV rolled toward the entrance, slow and quiet, the kind of vehicle that did not seem to belong to a person but to a decision. It stopped beside the fountain. The rear window lowered. Gabriel Moretti sat inside, shadowed by leather and city light. Nora forgot how to move. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then he said her name. Nora Parker. Her fingers tightened around her phone. "I really am going to pay for the suit." The driver looked straight ahead. The man in the front passenger seat did not turn around. Gabriel's eyes rested on her face. "I know." That was all. No threat, no demand, no smile this time. Just those two words spoken with such certainty that Nora felt them settle somewhere under her ribs. The SUV remained there, engine-low window open, the night gathering around it. Nora should have looked away. She did not. Gabriel leaned slightly toward the window. "Did Madison frighten you?" Nora's breath caught. "She explained some things. About me. Yes." And Nora glanced back at the mansion. Madison was visible through the glass, surrounded by guests, her face turned toward the driveway. Nora looked at Gabriel again. "And I think she enjoys dramatic summaries." The driver's mouth twitched. Gabriel watched Nora for a long second. "Do you always answer fear with sarcasm?" "No. Sometimes I use budgeting." The faint smile returned, then vanished before it could become soft. "Good night, Nora." "Good night, Mr. Moretti." "Gabriel." She did not repeat it. Not yet. His window rose. The SUV pulled away from the fountain, its tail lights gliding down the long driveway and disappearing beyond the iron gates. Nora stood in the cold until her ride arrived. She told herself it was over. One accident, one strange conversation, one ruined suit belonging to a man she would never see again. But when she sat in the back of the car and looked down at her phone, a new message waited on the screen from an unknown number. The suit survived. Nora stared at it until the driver asked if the address was correct. Her thumb hovered above the keyboard. Then, against every sensible instinct she had, she typed back, "Congratulations to the suit." Outside the window, Lake Forest gave way to dark roads and distant city lights. Nora pressed the phone to her lap, but it buzzed again before she could put it away. "It has requested distance from Champagne." A laugh escaped her, small and startled, in the back seat. The driver glanced at her through the mirror. Nora turned towards the window, hiding her smile from both the driver and herself. Chicago waited ahead, bright and restless under the night sky. Behind her, the mansion vanished. But the name Gabriel Moretti did not. By the time Nora reached her apartment, the city had become familiar again. The cracked sidewalk outside her building, the flickering light above the mailboxes, the tired elevator that groaned like it had opinions about every tenant. Everything looked the same as it had that morning, but Nora did not feel the same moving through it. She unlocked her door, stepped inside, and leaned back against it. Her phone was still in her hand. The last message from Gabriel Moretti glowed on the screen. "It has requested distance from Champagne." Nora should not have smiled. She did anyway. For one ridiculous moment, she stood in her quiet apartment and imagined the most feared man in Chicago consulting with his ruined suit like it had suffered personal trauma. The thought was absurd enough to loosen the tightness in her chest. Then, common sense returned. She was texting Gabriel Moretti, a man whose name made rooms go quiet, a man who spoke about blood and family traditions behind closed doors, a man who had looked at her as if her nervous honesty had been more interesting than all the diamonds in that ballroom. Nora placed the phone face down on the kitchen counter and backed away from it. "No," she whispered to herself. "Absolutely not." The phone buzzed. She stared at it. It buzzed again. Nora took off her heels, walked to the sink, poured herself a glass of water, and drank half of it while looking anywhere except the counter. The phone buzzed a third time. "Oh, for God's sake," she muttered. She picked it up. "Gabriel Moretti. You left quickly." Nora held the phone with both hands. She typed, deleted, typed again. Nora. Your reputation has excellent timing. His reply came almost immediately. Gabriel Moretti. My reputation talks too much. Nora sat at the tiny dining table, still in her borrowed dress, city light falling across her knees. Her laptop had gone dark. The spreadsheet from earlier waited beneath the sleeping screen, patient and ordinary. She should have let the conversation end there. Instead, she typed, Nora. It seems persuasive. For nearly a minute he did not answer. Nora hated that she noticed. Then the message appeared. Gabriel Moretti. Did it persuade you? She looked around her apartment, the peeling paint near the radiator, the grocery list stuck to the fridge, her father's old mug beside the sink, the world she understood. Then she thought of Gabriel under chandelier light, surrounded by fear, wearing a ruined suit and asking for her name like it mattered. Nora. Not completely. She sent it before she could take it back. This time his answer was slower. Gabriel Moretti. Good. Nora stared at that single word until her phone went dark in her hand. That night she did not sleep well. Her dreams came in pieces. Champagne falling like rain, a black suit stained silver under the light. Gabriel's voice from the hallway saying that men could choke on their traditions. Madison's fingers biting into her arm. The black SUV gliding away from the fountain. In the morning, Nora woke before her alarm and found herself reaching for her phone. No new messages. Relief and disappointment arrived together, which annoyed her enough to get her out of bed. Work was a safer place for thoughts like Gabriel Moretti. Numbers had borders, accounts had names, invoices either matched or they did not. There was comfort in a world where mistakes could be found, corrected, and filed. Nora spent Monday morning reviewing freight discrepancies for a regional shipping vendor. By 10, she had already discovered 2 duplicate charges and 1 expense report from a sales manager who apparently believed hotel minibar candy counted as client entertainment. Her co-worker Beth leaned over the cubicle wall with a paper cup of coffee. You survived the engagement party. Barely. Was it rich people rich or normal rich? Nora did not look up from her screen. There was a champagne tower. Beth whistled. Rich people rich. There were oysters. Dangerous rich. Nora smiled. Beth narrowed her eyes. Why are you smiling like that? I'm not. You are. It is suspicious. Nora clicked into another spreadsheet. I spilled champagne on a man. Beth gasped. At the rich people party. Yes. Was he handsome? Nora's fingers paused on the keyboard. Beth made a delighted noise. Oh, he was handsome. He was terrifying. Sometimes that is adjacent. No, Beth. Did he yell no? Did he flirt? Nora looked at her then. I have no idea. Beth leaned closer. That means yes. Before Nora could answer, the front desk receptionist appeared at the end of the aisle holding a cream-colored envelope. Nora Parker. Nora lifted her hand. This was delivered for you. The envelope was thick, expensive, and sealed with no return address. Beth mouthed silently, Oh my God. Nora waited until the receptionist walked away before opening it. Inside was a single card. Dinner, 1 hour, public place, no obligation. Beneath it was the name of a restaurant in River North and a time written in dark ink. At the bottom were 2 initials. GM. Beth grabbed Nora's arm. Who is GM? Nora slipped the card back into the envelope. No one. Beth looked at the envelope, then at Nora's face. No one does not use paper this expensive. Nora spent the rest of the day pretending to work. The card sat inside her desk drawer like a live animal. No obligation. That part bothered her most. A man like Gabriel Moretti probably did not need to say that unless he knew people expected the opposite from him. He knew what power did to a room. He knew what his name did to choices. And still he had written those 2 words. No obligation. By 5:30, Nora was standing in front of her apartment mirror in black pants, a cream blouse, and the only coat she owned that did not look like it had been bought during an emergency sale. This is dinner, she told her reflection. Not a life choice. Her reflection looked unconvinced. When she stepped outside, a black car waited at the curb. A man stood beside it. Tall, broad-shouldered, dark-skinned with a calm face and eyes that missed nothing. Nora recognized him from the hallway. "Miss Parker," he said. Nora stopped on the steps. "That depends on why you're here. Mr. Moretti asked me to drive you. Did he ask, or did he decide?" The man paused. "He asked me to be polite about it." Nora almost laughed. "What's your name, Miles Grant? Do you always answer honestly when it saves time?" Nora looked at the car, then at Miles. "I can call my own ride." "Yes, ma'am." He did not move to open the door. He did not argue. He simply waited, hands folded in front of him like patience was part of his job description. Nora's phone buzzed. "Gabriel Moretti." "You can say no. I will still send the cleaning receipt." She read the message twice. Then she looked at Miles. "He thinks he's funny." Miles opened the rear door. "He has been told that. By people who work for him. That doesn't count." This time Miles almost smiled. Nora got in. The restaurant was all warm, light dark wood and windows looking out at the glitter of River North. It was elegant, but not hidden. Busy enough that Nora could breathe. Public enough that she did not feel trapped. Gabriel stood when she approached the table. She noticed that first. Not the suit, though this one was deep charcoal and perfect. Not the watch, though it probably cost more than her car would have if she owned one. She noticed that he stood not with performance but with habit. Nora, Mr. Moretti, Gabriel. "I'm not sure we are on a first-name basis." His eyes moved over her face. "What basis are we on textile liability?" A faint smile touched his mouth. "Then I should thank you for coming. You wrote no obligation. I meant it. I wanted to see if you did." Something in his expression shifted almost approval. A waiter appeared as if summoned by money. Gabriel waited for Nora to order first. She chose pasta because it was the only item on the menu that did not require her to pretend she understood French sauce descriptions. For a while conversation moved carefully. He asked about her work. Not in the polite way people did when they wanted to stop listening after the job title. He asked what she looked for in accounts, what made numbers feel wrong, how she knew when someone was hiding something. Nora forgot to be nervous for almost 5 minutes. "Numbers have habits," she said. "People think fraud looks dramatic, but most of the time it looks lazy. Repeated amounts. Strange timing. Vendors with names that sound like they were made up in a hurry." Gabriel watched her with quiet attention. "You enjoy catching lies. I enjoy when the truth balances." He leaned back slightly, eyes thoughtful. "That is an interesting way to live." Nora looked down at her water glass. "It is not as interesting as whatever you do. You do not know what I do. I heard enough in the hallway." His face went still. There it was again, the door inside him closing. Nora felt the air change, but she did not apologize. "I did not mean to listen," she said. "But I heard the DeMarco name. I heard legal transition. I heard blood." Gabriel rested one hand beside his plate. "Then you heard a conversation you should not have." "I figured." "Are you afraid Nora considered lying?" "It would have been easier." "Yes." He looked at her for a long moment. "Good." Her eyes lifted. "Good fear keeps people careful. That sounds like something a dangerous man would say." "I am a dangerous man." He said it without pride. Without shame either, like he was naming the weather. Nora's pulse moved faster. "Then why am I here?" Gabriel looked toward the window where Chicago moved in streaks of headlights and wet pavement. "Because at that party you looked at me before you looked at my name." Nora did not know what to do with the ache in that sentence. That cannot be rare. His gaze returned to hers. "It is." The waiter arrived with dinner, breaking the moment cleanly. They ate. Nora asked safer questions. He answered some, avoided others. She learned his mother had loved old movies, that he hated sweet wine that he read at night because sleep came badly. He learned Nora's father had taught her to balance a checkbook before she learned long division, that she hated being called shy because it made silence sound like a defect, and that she thought expensive restaurants put too much empty space on plates. When the bill came, Gabriel reached for it. Nora reached faster. "No." He looked amused. "No, I am paying for something tonight. You are not paying for dinner. Then I am starting the suit fund. The suit survived. Emotionally unclear." She opened her purse, took out a small notebook, and tore a page from the back. On it, she wrote with serious precision. "Payment plan for damaged suit. $42 per month until debt is resolved or forgiven by fabric." She slid it across the table. Gabriel looked at the paper, then at her. "You made this now, I believe, in prompt documentation." His mouth curved. $42. "It is what I can afford without sacrificing groceries. I could buy the restaurant we are sitting in. That is not the point. What is the point? I made a mistake. I'm allowed to make it right." The smile faded from his face, not because he was angry, but because he understood she was not joking anymore. "Nora," he said quietly, "it is a suit. To you." The words settled between them. Gabriel picked up the paper and folded it once carefully as if it mattered. "Fine," he said. $42 a month." Nora blinked. "Really, yes. Are you going to add interest number late fees?" His eyes warmed. "Only if the fabric becomes vindictive." She laughed before she could stop herself. Gabriel watched that laugh like a man watching a window open. After dinner, Miles drove her home. Gabriel did not invite himself. He did not touch her when they said good night outside the restaurant. He only looked at her, his coat collar turned up against the cold. "Thank you for dinner," Nora said. "Thank you for the payment plan. You are mocking me. I am preserving evidence." The city moved around them. Traffic, voices, steam rising from a manhole cover. Nora felt the strange pull of him in the middle of all that motion. She stepped back first. "Good night, Gabriel." He heard the first name. She saw him hear it. "Good night, Nora." The messages became a habit before Nora admitted they were becoming a habit. At first, they were about the suit. "Nora, has it filed a formal complaint?" "Gabriel, it has retained counsel." "Nora, I hope counsel accepts installments." Then they became about whether sleepwork food, the kind of small things that should not have felt intimate but did because Gabriel did not seem like a man built for small things. One night, close to midnight, Nora found herself sitting on the floor beside her radiator eating cereal from a mug because all her bowls were in the sink. Her phone buzzed. "Gabriel." "Are you awake?" She looked at the cereal. Nora. Clearly living a glamorous life. A moment later, he called. Nora stared at the screen until it almost stopped ringing. Then she answered. "Is this an emergency?" His voice came low through the phone. "Are you eating cereal?" "In a bowl." She looked at the mug. "Yes." You hesitated. "I resent your attention to detail." A soft sound came through the line. Not quite a laugh, but close. Outside, a siren cried in the distance. Nora leaned her head back against the wall. "Why are you awake?" she asked. Silence breathed between them. Then Gabriel said, "Because the city gets loud when it is quiet." Nora understood that more than she wanted to. "My apartment makes noises at night," she said. "The radiator bangs like someone is trying to escape from the walls. Does that frighten you? No? It is too consistent to be a murderer." This time he did laugh. The sound moved through her like warmth. After that call, something changed. Not obviously, not in a way anyone else could measure. But Gabriel began to occupy the edges of her day. A message during lunch, a call after work, a silence on the phone that did not feel empty. A week later, he invited her to his penthouse. Nora read the message 3 times before answering. Nora. "I will come if I can take my own ride leave whenever I want, and you promise not to be weird about it." His reply took longer than usual. Gabriel. Define weird. Nora. Ordering people to stand outside doors, blocking exits, acting like your furniture has security clearance. Gabriel agreed. Nora. That was suspiciously easy. Gabriel. I am learning your terms. Nora set the phone down and pressed both hands over her face. She went. Gabriel lived high above the city in a building of glass and stone near the river. The lobby was quiet enough to hear the soft click of her heels. The elevator required a private key. A man at the desk greeted her by name, which she did not enjoy. The penthouse opened into space and shadow. Chicago stretched beyond the windows, glittering in every direction. The furniture was dark, elegant, and too perfect. There were no family photos, no clutter, no careless signs of living. It looked less like a home than a place where a powerful man came to stand alone above everyone else. Gabriel met her near the windows. "No bodyguards inside," he said. Nora looked around. "Are they hiding in the walls numb under the dramatic furniture?" "No dramatic chair tonight." She gave him a look. He almost smiled. "You remembered. I remember most things that concern my safety." His face sobered. You are safe here. Nora did not answer immediately. Then she said, I want to believe that. He nodded once as if accepting the difference. She expected him to pour wine. Instead, he led her down a hallway to a glass door. Warm air touched her before she saw what waited beyond it. A rooftop greenhouse. Nora stepped inside and stopped. The city vanished behind leaves. Lemon trees stood in wide clay pots. Vines climbed black iron frames. White roses bloomed beneath soft lights. Basil, rosemary, and mint filled the air with a clean green scent. Rain tapped lightly against the glass roof, turning the whole place into a secret held above Chicago. Nora forgot to be careful. You grow things. Gabriel stood behind her, hands in his pockets. I try. She moved slowly between the plants. That is not the answer I expected. What did you expect? Weapons, locked cabinets, a chair where you tell people they have disappointed you. I do have chairs. Do they intimidate people? Most people intimidate themselves before sitting down. Nora touched a lemon leaf gently. This is beautiful. The words came out softer than she meant. Gabriel looked at the roses, not at her. My mother had a garden when I was young. Not like this, smaller, messy. She planted whatever survived. What happened to it? My father paved it over after she died. Nora turned. Gabriel's face had gone quiet in a way that made the rest of the world step back. He said flowers were sentimental, Gabriel continued. He believed anything soft made people weak. Nora looked at the living green around them. So you built this? Yes. To prove him wrong, Gabriel's eyes met hers. At first. Now I think I built it because I needed one place in my life where nothing had to be afraid of me. The rain tapped above them. Nora felt that sentence open something in her chest. She wanted to ask about his father, about the Moretti name, about the blood Madison had warned her about, and the legal transition she had overheard. But the greenhouse held a fragile honesty, and she was afraid too many questions might bruise it, so she said plants are terrible at being impressed by reputations. A smile touched his face. No, they are not easily threatened. They also die if you overwater them. His gaze stayed on her. I know. The words meant more than plants. Nora looked away first. They stood among the roses while rain painted the glass. Gabriel showed her the herbs he used badly, his words, not hers. She teased him for owning 6 gardening books and still managing to make Basil look nervous. He told her he had once killed a cactus, which Nora said was less gardening and more a confession. In that hidden room above the city he seemed younger, not harmless, never harmless, but human in a way that made danger feel complicated. When she reached to adjust a leaning stem, her sleeve caught on a thorn. Gabriel stepped close. Careful. His hand lifted, then stopped just short of touching her wrist. He waited. Nora noticed. That mattered. Slowly she offered him her hand. He freed the fabric from the thorn with surprising gentleness. His fingers brushed her skin once barely there, but the contact moved through her like a match struck in darkness. Neither of them stepped away. Gabriel looked down at her hand, then at her mouth, then into her eyes. Nora's breath changed. The city below could have disappeared. The rain could have stopped. For one suspended second, there was only the warmth of the greenhouse and the space between them getting smaller. Her phone rang. The sound split the moment. Nora jumped. Gabriel stepped back at once. She pulled the phone from her purse and saw her mother's name. A nervous laugh escaped her. That is my reality calling. Gabriel's expression was unreadable again, but his voice was gentle. Answer it. Nora did. Elaine wanted to know whether she had eaten, whether her apartment heater had been fixed, whether Madison had sent thank-you notes yet. Nora answered while Gabriel moved away to give her privacy, standing near the roses with his back turned. She watched him as she spoke. This man who frightened rooms. This man who kept a secret garden in the sky. This man who had stepped back when her phone rang instead of acting like reality was an insult to him. When the call ended, Nora slipped the phone away. My mother worries, she said. She should. Nora frowned. Gabriel looked at her then. Not because of you. Because mothers understand the world takes what it wants if no one is watching. The words were dark but not cruel. Nora picked up her coat from a nearby bench. I should go. He nodded. No argument, no pressure. At the elevator, Nora turned back. Thank you for showing me the greenhouse. Gabriel stood in the open doorway, city light behind him, and warm garden light at his shoulder. Thank you for not laughing at it. I laughed at your cactus. That was deserved. She smiled. The elevator doors opened. Before she stepped inside, Gabriel said, Nora. She looked back. I do not want you to ignore your reality for me. The sentence held her still. He said it like a warning, like a promise he was trying to make before he knew whether he could keep it. Nora answered softly, I don't want that either. The elevator doors closed between them. Downstairs, the lobby was nearly empty. Her ride waited outside beneath a thin silver rain. Nora pulled her coat tight and stepped onto the sidewalk. She did not see the man across the street sitting in a parked car with tinted windows. She did not see the camera lift. She did not hear the soft click as her face was captured beneath the lights of Gabriel Moretti's building. Nora only looked up once at the tower of glass and wondered why leaving felt less like an escape than the beginning of a choice she did not yet understand. The next morning, Nora told herself the greenhouse had only been a room, a beautiful room, yes, a warm glass room above Chicago where lemon trees grew in clay pots, and Gabriel Moretti spoke about his mother like the words had to be carried carefully. But still only a room. Not a promise. Not a warning. Not a reason to look at her phone every time it lit up beside her coffee. By noon, she had checked it 6 times. By 3, she hated herself for counting. At 5, Gabriel texted, Have dinner with me somewhere you choose. Nora sat at her desk, the office lights buzzing overhead, and stared at the message until Beth leaned over the cubicle wall. Is it the suit man? Nora turned her phone face down. No, Beth smiled. That was a yes with fear in it. Nora looked at her spreadsheet. The numbers blurred. She should have said no. She had seen enough of Gabriel's world to know it did not bend around ordinary people. It swallowed them, polished them, and called it protection. But she also remembered the way he had stopped before touching her wrist in the greenhouse. The way he had waited. The way he had said he did not want her to ignore her reality for him. So Nora chose the least glamorous place she could think of. A diner in Logan Square with cracked red booths, a flickering sign, and coffee strong enough to make a person reconsider their life choices. Gabriel arrived 10 minutes early. Nora saw him through the window before he saw her. He stood outside beneath the neon sign in a charcoal overcoat, looking like a man who had been dropped into the wrong movie. People passing on the sidewalk glanced at him, and then looked away quickly as if instinct told them not to stare too long. When he stepped inside, the bell above the door gave a small, tired jingle. The waitress Denise looked up from the counter. Table for one handsome Gabriel paused unprepared for the casual attack. Nora lifted a hand from the booth. He's with me. Denise looked between them. Her eyebrows rose, but she only grabbed a menu. Well, good for you, baby. Nora nearly choked on her water. Gabriel slid into the booth across from her, too composed to blush, though something in his eyes warmed. You chose this place on purpose, he said. Yes, to humble me, to feed you pancakes. I have eaten pancakes, not here. He looked around. A man in a Cubs hoodie argued with the jukebox. A child was drawing on a paper placemat. Denise poured coffee with the authority of a woman who had seen every kind of heartbreak and judged most of it. Gabriel removed his gloves slowly. I like it. Nora studied him. You don't have to lie. I'm not. You look like you're considering buying the building. I was considering whether the roof needs repairs. Gabriel. He leaned back. Fine. I will only buy breakfast. She laughed before she could stop herself. Something in his face changed when she laughed. Not much, just enough to make the space between them feel less guarded. Denise came by with coffee. You two ready? Nora ordered eggs and toast. Gabriel looked at the menu as if it were a legal document. Pancakes, Nora told Denise. Gabriel looked up. I did not choose. You looked overwhelmed. Denise clicked her pen. Pancakes it is. When she walked away, Gabriel looked at Nora over the rim of his coffee. You are very comfortable issuing orders in diners, only in places where I understand the rules. He absorbed that. And my places. Nora wrapped both hands around her mug. I'm still trying to understand whether they have rules or just consequences. The diner noise filled the pause. Gabriel did not dodge the truth this time. They have both. That is not comforting. It was not meant to be. The pancakes arrived, absurdly large, butter melting down the stack. Gabriel inspected them with quiet suspicion. Nora passed him the syrup. Try being normal for 7 minutes. His gaze lifted. You think normal is a place, I think it is a muscle. He poured syrup too little. Nora took the container back and added more. There. Now you are participating in society. He took a bite. His expression remained serious. Nora waited. Well, he swallowed. It is better than the restaurant we went to. She grinned. That is the first suspicious thing you've said today. They stayed longer than Nora expected. Gabriel asked Denise about the diner, about how long she had worked there, about whether the owner planned to fix the sign. He listened as if every answer mattered. Nora realized with a quiet, unsettled feeling that Gabriel knew how to make people feel seen when he wanted to. The problem was that she could not tell whether he had learned that from kindness or strategy. After dinner, he walked her home through the cold. Miles followed in the car at a distance. Nora noticed, but Gabriel did not mention it. At her building, he stopped before the steps. I would like to meet your family, he said. Nora stared at him. That sounds like something a person says before disaster. I have survived worse. My mother makes emotional eye contact. My brother asks questions like a police report. I can answer questions. That is exactly what worries me. But Elaine had already been asking. She had seen Gabriel's name on Nora's phone when Nora came over for Sunday dinner and had gone still in that motherly way that meant panic was being folded neatly behind manners. 2 nights later, Gabriel stood on Elaine Parker's porch holding flowers and a bottle of wine Nora knew cost too much. Owen opened the door. He was broad-shouldered, wearing a flannel shirt and the expression of a man who had already decided not to like the visitor. You, the guy with the driver. Gabriel looked past him to where Miles waited by the curb. Yes, you planning to bring that everywhere my sister goes, Owen, Nora warned from behind him. Gabriel's face stayed calm. If she is with me, I prefer to know she is safe. Owen stepped back just enough to let him in. That was not a no. Elaine came from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a towel. She was smaller than Nora, with tired, kind eyes and the same habit of watching before speaking. Mr. Moretti. Gabriel, please. He offered the flowers. Elaine took them. They're beautiful. Nora saw her mother notice the expensive wrapping, the careful choice, the way Gabriel stood as if every room might become a negotiation. Dinner was pot roast mashed potatoes, green beans, and rolls from the bakery down the street. Gabriel ate everything placed in front of him and complimented the food without sounding like a man performing humility. For almost 15 minutes it worked. Then Owen set down his fork. So what exactly do you do? Nora closed her eyes. Gabriel wiped his mouth with a napkin. I manage family investments, real estate, construction, hospitality. Owen gave a short laugh. That what we're calling it? Owen Elaine said softly. No, I want to hear him say it. Owen looked at Gabriel. Men in Chicago don't whisper your name because you own restaurants. The room tightened. Gabriel did not look away. No, he said. They do not. Nora felt the blood leave her face. Elaine's hand moved toward her water glass but did not pick it up. Owen leaned forward. You planning to get my sister hurt? No. Men like you don't plan damage. It follows you. Gabriel's silence was worse than denial, because it agreed. Nora pushed back from the table. That's enough. Owen turned to her. You know I'm right. I know you're scared. I'm not the one who should be scared. Gabriel spoke then, quiet and firm. He is not wrong to worry. Nora looked at him sharply. Gabriel's gaze remained on Owen. But I am not careless with what matters to me. Owen's jaw tightened. She is not a thing that matters to you. She is my sister. Gabriel nodded once. I understand. Nora did not know if he did, not fully. But he was trying not to win the room, and that counted for more than she expected. Later, while Owen loaded dishes too loudly in the sink, Elaine pulled Nora into the hallway. Her mother's voice was low. Honey, I need you to listen to me without getting defensive. That sentence has never led anywhere pleasant. Elaine touched Nora's arm. A man like that does not just enter a life. He rearranges it. Nora swallowed. He's not what people think. Maybe not. Elaine glanced toward the dining room where Gabriel stood alone looking at an old photograph of Nora's father. But power has habits, even when it means well. Nora wanted to argue. Instead, she looked at Gabriel through the doorway and remembered how naturally the world made space for him. The next morning, Nora understood her mother's fear. She arrived at work with coffee in one hand and her bag slipping from her shoulder. The office went quiet before she reached her desk. Not fully quiet. Worse, pretend quiet. Beth stood near Nora's cubicle, pale and furious. "Nora," she said, "you need to see this." On Beth's screen was a gossip site with a photo of Nora leaving Gabriel's building in the rain. Her face was clear. So was the headline, "Chicago's Most Dangerous Bachelor and the Accountant," from Logan Square. Nora's coffee tilted in her hand. The article named her job, her neighborhood, her cousin's engagement party. Her mother's street was not listed, but close enough details sat between the lines for anyone determined to find it. Below the article, comments had already begun to breed. "Gold digger. Poor girl has no idea. She must know where the money is buried." Nora stepped back from the screen. Beth touched her shoulder. "I'm sorry." Nora's manager called her in 20 minutes later. He spoke gently, which made it worse. "This attention may disrupt the office environment. I did not ask for attention, of course not. But until this cools down, remote work may be best. You're sending me home because someone took my picture. We are trying to protect you and the company. Protect." The word followed her into the bathroom where she locked herself in a stall and tried to breathe without making noise. Her phone rang. "Gabriel." She answered because not answering felt impossible. His voice was already tight. "I'm sending a car." Nora closed her eyes. "Don't." "Your address is public enough now. I said don't. This is not a debate." There it was, the voice from the hallway at Lake Forest, the man who gave orders and expected the world to become safer because of them. Nora stood very still. "Gabriel, I will have Miles at your office in 10 minutes. If Miles comes here, I will leave through the back door and take the train." Silence. His voice lowered. "Nora, this is serious." "I know it is." "Then stop fighting me. I'm not fighting safety. I'm fighting being handled." He did not answer. She softened, but only a little. "You do not get to take over my life because you're scared." Another silence. Then he said, "I am not scared." Nora laughed once without humor. "Yes, you are. You're just rich enough to call it logistics." She ended the call before he could respond. By evening, there was a black car outside her apartment anyway. Nora saw it from the corner and stopped beneath the awning of a closed bakery. Miles stood beside the vehicle, hands folded, expression unreadable. She walked up to him. "Miles, Miss Parker, did he order you here?" Miles took a breath. "Yes, at least you're honest. I was also told not to force you into the car. Progress." Miles looked almost apologetic. He is not good at helpless. Nora looked up at her building. A man across the street pretended to check his phone. A woman near the bus stop stared too long. Fear moved under Nora's ribs like cold water. "I'm not good at being watched," she said. "No, ma'am." She did not get into the car. She went upstairs alone. The next 2 days were worse. A reporter knocked on her building door. Someone left a comment on her company's public page. Madison called crying because people from the party were asking whether Nora and Gabriel had already been involved that night. Elaine begged Nora to stay with her. Owen threatened to come over with a baseball bat. Gabriel kept sending options disguised as solutions. A secure apartment, a private driver, a new phone, a lawyer, a statement, a security detail. Each one practical, each one suffocating. Finally, Nora went to the penthouse. Gabriel opened the door himself. He looked tired in a way she had never seen before. His sleeves rolled up, jaw dark with the shadow of a long day. For 1 second, she almost forgot why she was angry. Then she saw 2 folders on the table labeled with her name. Her full name, Nora Parker. She walked to them slowly. "What is this?" Gabriel followed her gaze. "Security assessments? Of me, of the situation around you." She opened one. Photos of her building. Entry points, work schedule, known relatives, known routes. Her stomach turned. "You mapped my life, Nora. You mapped my life, Gabriel. I needed to know where you were exposed. I am exposed because of you." The words landed hard. His face closed. I know. No, I don't think you do. Because if you did, you would have asked me before turning my life into a file. His voice sharpened. You think asking would change the risk? Yes. It would change whether I was a person in the room or a problem on your desk. Gabriel turned away, then back, fighting for control. The DeMarcos put eyes on you. The name struck the air. Nora stilled. What they were seen near your office. You were not going to tell me I was trying to confirm it. You were trying to control when I got scared. His jaw tightened. I was trying to keep you safe. No, Nora said, voice shaking now. You were trying to keep yourself from feeling scared. That broke through. She saw it hit him, saw the anger falter, leaving something raw behind it. You don't understand what men like Adrian DeMarco do when they find a weakness, Gabriel said. Nora stepped closer. Then stop calling me that. I didn't. You think it. I can feel it every time you try to move me somewhere safer without asking. His eyes burned. You are not weak. Then stop treating my choices like they are. Outside the windows, Chicago glittered beneath them, beautiful and indifferent. Gabriel looked at her as if something inside him was being pulled apart. I cannot protect you from across the city. Nora's throat tightened. Then learn to love me without owning the room I'm standing in. He went very still. Love. She had not meant to say it, not like that, not in his penthouse with her name in a folder between them, but the word was there now, breathing with them. Gabriel looked like he wanted to cross the room and like he knew he had no right to. Nora picked up her coat. I need space. His voice was quiet. Nora. She turned at the elevator. If you follow me, if you send men after me, if you make one call to decide what happens next without me, then you prove my mother right. The elevator doors opened. Gabriel stood frozen in the middle of his perfect lonely room. He did not follow. Nora stepped inside and the doors closed. She made it to the lobby before her tears fell. Not loud tears, not dramatic ones, just hot, silent proof that leaving him did not feel like freedom. It felt like pulling skin from a wound. Outside, the night air was cold enough to steady her. A woman stood near the curb beneath a black umbrella. Vivian Cole. Nora recognized her from an arts charity gala Gabriel had taken her to, once a tall, elegant woman in emerald silk who had watched the room as if she already knew everyone's secrets and regretted half of them. Nora Parker, Vivian said. Nora wiped her cheek quickly. If this is about Gabriel, I'm not in the mood. Vivian smiled sadly. It usually is one way or another. Nora should have walked past her. Instead, she stayed. Vivian lowered the umbrella, slightly sheltering them both from the misting rain. He looks at you like you are a door out, Vivian said. Nora's chest tightened. Out of what? Everything that made him. Nora stared toward the street. That sounds romantic when you say it softly. It is not. Vivian's voice held no cruelty. That made it harder to dismiss. When a man believes you are his only way out of hell, he may hold on too tightly. Nora looked at her. Did he do that to you? Vivian gave a small smile. No, Gabriel never loved me. But I have known men who mistook rescue for ownership. And Gabriel is trying to become something different from his father. That is real. So is the blood behind the name. So is the danger around it. A car passed slowly, tires whispering against wet pavement. Vivian continued. The DeMarcos do not hate him because he is criminal. They hate him because he is leaving and taking money, influence, and old silence with him. If he proves that kind of empire can clean itself, men like Adrian lose more than business. They lose mythology. Nora absorbed that. The world around Gabriel was not just wealth and danger. It was history fighting to stay alive. Vivian touched her arm lightly. Do not let them make you a symbol. Not Gabriel, not Adrian, not the newspapers. Nora looked back at the tower. What if I already am, then become an inconvenient one? Vivian stepped away, leaving Nora under the awning with rain in her hair and too much truth in her hands. At home, the apartment felt smaller than usual, but also stubbornly hers. No guards inside, no folders, no skyline, just radiator heat, old floorboards, and the basil plant still leaning toward the window like survival was a direction. Nora changed into sweatpants and opened her laptop because numbers were the only language that did not ask how she felt. Her remote access still worked. A message from her manager asked her to review several vendor discrepancies before morning. Logistics invoices, regional shipping, consulting charges, ordinary work, blessedly ordinary. Nora made tea and started sorting. For an hour, the world narrowed to cells, dates, amounts, invoice numbers. Then she saw it. A vendor name she did not recognize attached to a construction transport account. Northline Civic Supply. The invoices were clean at first glance. Too clean. Same amount repeated every 12 business days. Different project codes, same approval path. Routed through a consulting shell that had no website, no listed staff, and a registered address in a strip mall outside Cicero. Nora straightened. She searched the linked accounts. More payments surfaced. Small enough not to trigger review alone. Large enough to matter together. Her tea went cold. She copied the vendor ID into a separate sheet and traced it through 3 more companies. Then a holding name appeared in the ownership notes. DeMarco Holdings. Nora stopped breathing. The apartment was quiet except for the radiator knocking once inside the wall. She leaned closer to the screen. There were more entries. Dozens. Not random, not sloppy. A hidden river of money moving beneath legitimate contracts, brushing against companies connected to Gabriel's transition close enough to stain him if anyone looked from the wrong angle. Nora's fingers hovered above the keyboard. Her phone sat beside the laptop. Gabriel's name was still at the top of her recent calls. For a long moment, she did not move. Then she opened a new spreadsheet and began to follow the money. Nora did not call Gabriel right away. For almost an hour, she let the numbers speak first. She sat at her tiny dining table with her knees tucked beneath her, the blue light of the laptop washing over her face while Chicago slept badly beyond the window. The radiator knocked again. A siren passed somewhere far off. The basil plant trembled each time the old glass rattled in its frame. On the screen, invoice after invoice opened like a trail of footprints. Northline Civic Supply had billed for transport services on construction sites that never used them. Another company, Halden Advisory Group, had charged consulting fees to a logistics account with no project notes attached. A third vendor, Lakefront Materials, had received payments on the same dates as the others in amounts too neat to be natural. Nora copied every transaction into a clean spreadsheet. Date, vendor, amount, approval route, linked account, ownership record. The rows multiplied. Her first instinct was professional. Verify before reacting. Never accuse a pattern until the pattern survives pressure. So she tested it. She searched addresses. 2 companies shared the same mail drop in Cicero. One had been registered by a man whose name appeared in an old state filing tied to DeMarco Holdings. Another had changed ownership 3 times in 9 months, each time moving 1 layer farther from the original source. Nora leaned closer. The money was not just moving, it was circling. Small streams entered harmless accounts, passed through shell vendors, then landed near companies Gabriel had been trying to clean. Close enough to suggest corruption. Far enough to deny intent. It was elegant in the ugliest way. By 3 in the morning, Nora's coffee had gone cold and her hands were stiff. Her eyes burned, but her mind had become painfully clear. This was not random fraud. This was a trap. If investigators found the trail without context, Gabriel's legal businesses would look dirty. His attempt to leave the old world would collapse under the weight of money that had been pushed toward him by someone else. Adrian DeMarco was not trying to beat Gabriel in the streets. He was trying to bury him in paperwork. Nora stared at Gabriel's name in her phone. Only a few hours ago, she had walked out of his penthouse because he had turned her life into a security file. Now she was sitting in her apartment with proof that the men he feared had already reached the edges of her ordinary world. She hated that he had been right to worry. She hated even more that he had been wrong in how he handled it. At 4:12, she called him. He answered before the second ring. Nora. His voice was rough with sleeplessness. She looked at the spreadsheet. Are you alone? A pause. Yes. Good. I found something. His breathing changed. Are you safe? That depends, she said, rubbing her eyes. How angry are you about financial crimes? The silence on the line lasted just long enough for her to imagine him standing up. Send nothing over the phone, he said. I was not planning to. I can be there in 20 minutes. No. Nora. I am not doing this in my apartment, and you are not sending half of Chicago to my door. He went quiet again. She could almost feel him swallowing the order before it reached his mouth. Where he asked. The greenhouse. Another pause, softer this time. Why there? Because it is the only room of yours that does not feel like it is trying to win. At dawn, Nora walked into Gabriel's building with a tote bag full of printed ledgers, copied records, and handwritten notes. She had taken a rideshare under a fake name and changed cars once because fear had made her careful in ways she resented. Miles met her in the lobby. He looked at the dark circles under her eyes but did not comment. Miss Parker. Miles. Mr. Moretti is upstairs. Is he calm? Miles considered that. He is standing still. That is not the same thing. No, ma'am. The elevator rose in silence. When the doors opened, Gabriel was waiting. He wore black trousers and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled to his forearms. His hair was slightly disordered and there was a shadow along his jaw. The sight of him should not have affected her, not after the fight, not after the folders with her name on them, but it did. His eyes moved over her face first, then her coat, then the tote bag. He wanted to ask if she was hurt. She could see him choosing not to. "Thank you for coming," he said. Nora nodded. "Thank you for not sending a car." A flicker of something moved through his eyes. "I wanted to, I know." He led her to the greenhouse. Morning had softened the room. Pale light spread through the glass ceiling, touching the lemon trees and white roses. The city beyond the windows looked distant, almost unreal. Frank DeLuca stood near the far table, silver hair, combed back face carved in suspicion. June Calloway sat with a legal pad open in front of her. Miles remained by the door. Nora stopped. "I thought you said you were alone." Gabriel met her gaze. "I was when you called. Now I need people who can act on what you found." Frank looked at the tote bag. "With respect, Miss Parker, this better be worth the sunrise." Nora set the bag on the table and began removing files. "I have not slept, Mr. DeLuca, so I am going to be very direct. Your rival family is laundering money through shell vendors tied to logistics and construction accounts. Some of those accounts brush close enough to Mr. Moretti's legal businesses to make him look involved if someone finds the trail from the wrong direction." Frank's eyes narrowed. Gabriel did not move. Nora spread the first transaction map across the table. "This is Northline Civic Supply. Fake transport billing. The address links to 2 other vendors. One of those vendors ties back to a registered agent connected to DeMarco Holdings. The payments are small enough to avoid attention individually, but together they create a pattern." June leaned forward, her pen moving. Nora placed another page down. "This is Halden Advisory Group. No staff, no website, no real service history. It receives funds after Northline invoices are paid, then passes part of that money into an account that once held funds for a Moretti-affiliated redevelopment project." Frank scoffed. "A junior accountant can find this, but my people missed it." Nora looked at him. "Your people were looking for threats with guns. I was looking for lazy math." The room went still. Then Gabriel's mouth twitched. Frank did not smile. Nora kept going. "Whoever built this wanted the accounts to look clean at a glance. But they repeated timing patterns. Every 12 business days. Similar amounts. Same approval path. Same secondary routing. It is not enough to prove intent alone, but it is enough to open the right door." Gabriel stepped closer to the table, and behind the door, Nora looked up at him. Adrian DeMarco. The name changed the air in the greenhouse. Frank muttered something under his breath. Gabriel picked up one of the pages and read silently. His face emptied as he absorbed the structure of the trap. Nora watched the old stillness return to him, the dangerous calm that made men lower their voices. At last, Gabriel spoke. "Where is Adrian tonight?" Frank answered too fast. "Cicero, warehouse office on 31st. Nora's stomach dropped. "No." Gabriel looked at her. "No. You heard me." Frank turned sharply. "Miss Parker, this is not your place." Nora did not look at him. She kept her eyes on Gabriel. "You said you wanted out. This is the door. Do not walk past it because revenge is familiar." Gabriel's voice lowered. "He put men on you. And if you go to that warehouse, he gets exactly what he wants. You do not know men like Adrian. I know men who build traps." Nora touched the ledger. "This is a trap with invoices instead of bullets." "But it is still a trap." Gabriel stared at her jaw tight. "He made you afraid." "Yes," she said, "and you do not get to use my fear as permission to become your father." The words cut through the room. Frank went silent. June stopped writing. Gabriel looked away first. For a moment, he was not the man who owned buildings, commanded soldiers, and frightened rooms. He was just a son, standing in the shadow of a dead man, trying not to become him. When he looked back at Nora, his voice was quieter. "What do you suggest?" Nora exhaled slowly. "We build a case before Adrian knows we can see him." The day became a blur of paper coffee phone calls and controlled tension. Gabriel brought in an outside attorney named Rachel Voss, a woman with steel-gray eyes and a voice that made even Frank sit straighter. She reviewed Nora's work with a focus so intense it felt like cross-examination. At one point, Rachel asked Nora to explain the routing pattern again. Nora did slower this time. Rachel looked at Gabriel. "She is right." Gabriel's eyes never left Nora. "I know." The plan formed piece by piece, not violence, evidence. Rachel would make a protected disclosure to a federal financial crimes unit through channels Gabriel had not compromised. June would gather corporate records proving which Moretti businesses were undergoing legal restructuring. Frank would identify which old associates might have been feeding information to DeMarco. Miles would tighten physical security without crowding Nora unless she agreed. That last part took effort. Gabriel stood by the table while Nora reviewed alternate routes home. He placed 3 options in front of her. "Your choice," he said. Nora looked up surprised. He held her gaze. "I am trying." She wanted to stay angry. Part of her did. But another part, the tired, honest part, understood what it cost him to ask instead of command. She chose the second route. "Fine. Miles can drive me to my mother's, not my apartment." Gabriel nodded. "And you do not call my manager." His mouth tightened. "I already dislike this plan. I did not ask if you liked it." "No," he said, "you did not." At sunset, Nora stood alone in the greenhouse, trying to breathe away a headache. The plants glowed under the soft lamps. The sky outside had turned purple over Chicago. Gabriel entered quietly. "I owe you an apology." Nora did not turn around. "For which part? All of it?" That made her look at him. He came no closer than the doorway. "I turned your life into a problem to solve because solving problems is easier than being afraid." Nora's throat tightened. "I know. I told myself it was protection. It was. Some of it." His eyes darkened. "But not all." "No." He accepted it. A simple nod. No defense. "I cannot promise I will never get it wrong again," he said. "But I can promise I will hear you when you tell me." Nora looked at the white roses behind him. "That is not a small promise in your world." "No," Gabriel said. "It is not." For one fragile second, the space between them softened. Then Miles appeared at the door. "Mr. Moretti, Miss Parker, we have a problem." The first direct contact came outside Nora's office building the next afternoon. She had gone in for 1 hour to retrieve files and sign paperwork. Miles waited across the street because Nora had insisted he not hover at the elevator like a threat in a suit. The lobby was busy enough that she felt almost normal. Then she stepped outside and saw the man by the curb. Adrian DeMarco did not look like violence. That was the first thing that unsettled her. He was handsome in a polished, expensive way with light brown hair, a tailored navy coat, and a smile made for charity boards and private cruelty. 2 men stood behind him close enough to be noticed, far enough to deny. "Miss Parker," he said, Chicago's most famous accountant. Nora's fingers tightened around the strap of her bag. She did not stop walking. Adrian fell into step beside her. Rude. I expected more manners from Gabriel's new conscience. Nora kept her eyes forward. "I do not know you, no, but you found me." That stopped her. Adrian smiled. There she is. Miles had seen them now. He moved from across the street fast but controlled. Adrian noticed and lifted one hand in harmless greeting. "No need for drama. I only wanted to meet the woman who made Gabriel Moretti believe he could become clean." Nora's voice stayed low. "You should leave." Adrian leaned closer. "You do understand he is using you, don't you? Not cruelly. Gabriel is rarely cruel without purpose, but you make him feel redeemable. That is a powerful drug for a man with blood in the family Bible." Miles reached them. "Step away from her." Adrian smiled at Miles, then looked back at Nora. "Tell Gabriel to stop digging, or the city learns what kind of man he really is." Nora felt cold move through her body. "I already know what kind of man he is." Adrian's smile sharpened. "No, sweetheart. You know what kind of man he wants to be. There is a difference." He walked away before Miles could do anything that would help him. Nora stood on the sidewalk, heart hammering. Miles spoke carefully. "We need to go." Nora nodded, but Adrian's words stayed with her all the way back to Gabriel's building. That night, the evidence handoff was arranged at a private dining room in a downtown hotel. Rachel wanted public enough to discourage violence, private enough to control the exchange. Gabriel hated it. Nora hated that he hated it. Everyone arrived tense. The flash drive rested in Nora's purse. On it was the clean transaction map, the supporting invoices, the ownership records, and a narrative memo Rachel had called devastating. They sat around a long table beneath amber lights while rain striped the windows. Gabriel sat beside Nora, not touching her, but close enough that she could feel the restraint in him. Rachel checked her watch. "The federal contact is 10 minutes out." Frank muttered, "I dislike every part of this." Nora almost smiled. "That seems consistent." A server entered with coffee. He placed a cup in front of Nora and slipped a folded napkin beside it. At first, she did not notice. Then she saw the writing. "Leave now or Gabriel dies with the evidence." Her body went still. Across the room, one of the busboys glanced at her too long. Another man near the service door touched his ear. Nora understood at once. If she reacted, Gabriel would react harder. If Gabriel reacted, the room would explode before Rachel's contact arrived. Adrian wanted panic. He wanted Gabriel visible, violent, undeniable. Nora picked up her purse. Gabriel's eyes moved to her. "Bathroom," she said softly. He studied her face. For one terrible second she thought he knew. Maybe he did. But Rachel began speaking and Nora walked out before he could stop her. The hallway was quiet. Too quiet. Nora did not go to the bathroom. She turned left, then right, then pushed through a service door into a stairwell. Her pulse pounded in her throat. She heard a door open above her. Someone following. She ran down 2 flights out through a side exit and into the rain. Chicago hit her all at once. Wet pavement, cold wind, horns, the black shine of the river below Wacker Drive. Her heel caught on a grate and snapped. She stumbled, caught herself, and kept moving with the flash drive clutched in her fist. Her phone buzzed. "Gabriel," she answered. "Nora." His voice was low and lethal. "Where are you? I think they found me." Silence cracked open on the line. Then he said, "Do not turn around." Nora froze beneath a streetlight. Behind her, a black sedan eased to the curb. A door opened. Gabriel's voice sharpened. "Nora, keep walking." She moved. On a digital newsstand nearby, her own face flashed across a gossip headline from days before. The accountant, the Mafia king, the woman in the rain. Her phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number appeared. "You should have just paid for the suit." Nora's breath caught. A man stepped from the sedan holding a black umbrella. "Miss Parker," he called. "Mr. DeMarco would like a word." Nora whispered into the phone. "Gabriel." The sound he made was not fear. It was rage being locked behind teeth. "Run!" Nora ran. Her broken heel slapped unevenly against the wet sidewalk. She cut down a ramp into an underground parking structure, lungs burning, the flash drive slick in her palm. Footsteps followed, echoing against concrete. "Miss Parker," the man called. "You do not belong in this world." Nora ducked behind a concrete pillar and pressed a hand over her mouth. Her phone remained connected. She could hear Gabriel breathing fast, now moving. The footsteps slowed. Closer, closer. A shadow crossed the ground. Then Miles came out of the dark like a door opening in the wrong direction. He struck the man once, fast and clean. The umbrella clattered across the concrete. Nora stumbled back. Gabriel arrived seconds later. He was soaked, coat open, eyes black with a fury so controlled it frightened her more than shouting would have. He went to the man on the ground. For one breath Nora saw it. The old world, the old answer, the violence waiting inside him like a language he had learned too young. Gabriel looked at the man, then at Nora, then at the flash drive in her hand. Slowly he straightened. "Take his phone," he told Miles. Miles did. Gabriel pulled his own phone from his pocket and handed it to Rachel, who had just entered the garage with 2 security men behind her. "Call your federal contact," Gabriel said. "Tell them Adrian made his move." Nora's knees nearly gave out. Gabriel crossed to her, then stopping just short of touching her. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head. His hands flexed once at his sides. Can I only then did she step into him. Gabriel wrapped his arms around her hard, but not crushing his face, pressed briefly into her wet hair. Nora felt the tremor move through him. Not weakness, restraint. The flash drive reached federal hands before midnight. By morning, the city was awake to a different story. Not gossip, evidence. DeMarco Holdings was tied to laundering bribery shell vendors and a deliberate attempt to contaminate companies undergoing legal transition under the Moretti umbrella. Rachel's disclosure protected the source. Nora's transaction map gave investigators the structure. Gabriel's records showed the attempted sabotage. Adrian tried to strike first through the press. He claimed Gabriel had built the network. He claimed Nora was a manipulated employee. He claimed the Morettis were sacrificing a rival family to look clean. For 6 hours, the city did what cities do. It speculated. It whispered. It chose sides before facts had finished putting on shoes. Then Rachel released enough documentation to change the temperature. Not everything, just enough. Dates, ownership links, routing chains, vendor registration records, approval gaps, the kind of dry evidence people ignored until it became a blade. By evening, federal agents entered DeMarco offices. Adrian requested a private meeting with Gabriel before the walls fully closed. Frank said it was a trap. Nora said the same. Gabriel listened to both of them and went anyway, but not as the man Adrian expected. The meeting took place in an old private club downtown, all dark wood leather chairs and portraits of dead men who had believed power was permanent. Adrian stood near the fireplace with a drink in his hand. Gabriel entered alone. At least that was what Adrian saw. Rachel's recording device was already live. Federal agents waited 2 rooms away with the patience of people who preferred confessions wrapped in arrogance. Adrian smiled. "You think a clean suit makes you clean?" Gabriel said nothing. Adrian stepped closer. "Look at you. Paperwork, lawyers, accountants. Is this what she did to you?" Gabriel's face remained calm. Adrian's smile thinned. "Your father would be ashamed." For 1 second, the room seemed to hold its breath. Gabriel felt the old wound open. Nora was not there, but he heard her voice anyway. "Do not make me the excuse you used to become your father." He looked at Adrian and saw a man still kneeling at the altar of fear, still calling it strength. "My father built a kingdom out of graves," Gabriel said. "I am not interested in ruling a cemetery." Adrian laughed. Then agents entered the room. His face changed just slightly. "Enough." Gabriel did not smile. He did not gloat. He only stepped aside and let the law do what his hands once would have done faster. That night, he found Nora in the greenhouse. She stood near the white roses wearing one of his dry shirts over her damp clothes, her hair loose around her shoulders. The city glowed beyond the glass, distant and restless. Gabriel stopped at the doorway. "It is done," he said. Nora turned. "Is it?" He understood the question. Adrian had been taken. The evidence was safe. The DeMarco network was bleeding under federal light. But done was a dangerous word. Gabriel walked to the table and set down the folded payment plan she had written at their first dinner. The paper was worn now from being carried. Nora looked at it. "You kept that yes." Why, he looked at the roses, because it was the first contract anyone ever made with me that had nothing to do with fear. Nora's eyes softened. Gabriel's voice dropped. "I wanted to kill him." She did not flinch. "I know. I could see it. In the garage, in the club. It would have been easy." Nora stepped closer. "But you did not." "No." He looked at her then, and the control was gone from his face. What remained was exhaustion, grief, and something that looked dangerously like hope. "I do not know how to be clean, Nora." She touched his hand. "Then start with honest." His fingers turned beneath hers, slowly giving her time to pull away. She did not. Outside, rain began again, soft against the glass. Gabriel bowed his head until his forehead touched hers. For once, he did not stand above the world. He stood inside it, wounded and breathing, holding the woman who had followed the numbers into darkness and brought back enough truth to keep him from becoming a ghost of his father. Nora closed her eyes. The city kept moving below them. In the greenhouse, nothing had to be afraid of him. Not tonight. By morning, the rain had washed the city clean, but it had not made anything simple. Gabriel stood alone in his office while Chicago lifted itself into another gray day beyond the windows. Men in expensive coats moved through the lobby below. Phones rang, lawyers called. Reporters waited outside buildings they had never cared about until power began to bleed in public. On his desk sat 3 folders: businesses to close, properties to sell, names to remove from payroll. For most of his life, the Moretti name had been a door that opened anywhere. Restaurants, union halls, private clubs, police precincts, courtrooms where no one said the quiet part aloud. His father had built that name out of fear and called it legacy. Now Gabriel had to take it apart with his own hands. Frank DeLuca stood near the bar cart, untouched coffee going cold beside him. "You do this fast. People will think you are weak," Frank said. Gabriel looked at the first folder. "People already think too much. This is not a boardroom cleanup. Men have eaten from these tables for years. You take the tables away, they will bite." Gabriel opened the folder and signed the first document. "Then they bite." Frank stared at him. "You sound like her." Gabriel's pen stopped. Nora had left before dawn, not because she was running from him, but because she had a life that still required clean clothes, sleep, and a mother who would call the police if she did not answer by breakfast. Before she went, she had stood at the elevator in one of his shirts and her ruined shoes, looking too tired to be brave and too brave to pretend she was not afraid. Gabriel had wanted to ask her to stay. He had not. That was the first victory of the day. He signed the second page. "Good," he said. Frank's face softened in a way he rarely allowed. "You really mean to do it?" Gabriel looked at the city. "I should have done it before she came." "Maybe." Frank stepped closer, older now than Gabriel wanted to notice. "But you did not know who you were without the war." Gabriel did not answer. Below the glass, Chicago moved on. It did not care whether he changed. Cities never did. They swallowed blood and built coffee shops over the stain. Gabriel closed the folder. "Then I learn. The learning hurt. It hurt in ways bullets never had." Over the next weeks, Gabriel sold a warehouse on the south side that had held more secrets than inventory. He shut down cash-heavy businesses that accountants had once cleaned with clever lies. He fired men who had been loyal to his father and dangerous to everyone else. He moved legitimate employees into protected companies and cut loose anyone who could not survive without shadows. Some left quietly. Some cursed his name. Some called him weak. One man, an old associate named Carlo Venn, stood in Gabriel's office with a red face and shaking hands. "Your father would spit on this," Carlo said. Gabriel looked up from the papers. "My father is dead." Carlo leaned forward. "And you are killing what he built." Gabriel's voice remained calm. "Yes." The man had no answer for that. After Carlo left, Gabriel walked to the greenhouse and stood among the lemon trees until the anger cooled enough not to become action. Nora found him there that evening. She did not knock anymore, but she did not enter like the space belonged to her either. That was one of the things he loved about her. She respected rooms without being ruled by them. "You fired Carlo," she said. "He threatened 3 people before lunch. Efficient." Gabriel looked at her. "He also called me weak." Nora set her bag on the bench and walked between the plants. She wore black slacks and a soft gray sweater, her hair pinned back with a pencil she had probably forgotten was there. "Did you believe him?" "No." "Did it hurt anyway?" Gabriel watched her touch a basil leaf. "Yes." She nodded as if the answer mattered more than pride. "I got an offer today," she said. His attention sharpened. "From who? A forensic accounting firm downtown. They work with legal teams, nonprofits, and companies trying to find hidden fraud before it destroys people. That is good." "It is." He heard the caution in her voice. "They know about me," he asked. "They know about the case. They know I was involved. And they want me because of the work, not because of you." Gabriel held her gaze. "I believe that." Nora searched his face, perhaps waiting for the offer he wanted to make. A call, a connection, a door opened too easily. He kept his hands still. She smiled a little. "You are in physical pain right now, aren't you?" "I could make one call." "I know. I will not." Her smile deepened. "Progress looks good on you." He breathed out, almost laughing. "I hate it." "No, you hate not controlling it, that too." She stepped closer. "I am taking the job. I am proud of you." The words came quickly before fear could dress itself as advice. Nora's expression changed, softened, opened. "Thank you." He wanted to touch her, but he waited. She noticed. Then she reached for his hand. That became their rhythm. Not easy, never easy, but honest. Nora started the new job 2 weeks later. Her office was smaller than Gabriel expected, and busier than Nora expected. She came home with ink on her fingers, tired eyes, and stories about shell companies' stolen wages, fake vendors, and people who had been lied to by numbers until someone taught the numbers to confess. She did not become loud. She did not become polished in the way Madison once tried to be. She remained Nora, quiet at times, observant, funny when nervous, fierce when someone mistook gentleness for permission. Only now she stopped apologizing before she took up space. Gabriel learned to watch without reaching for the wheel. Sometimes he failed. One night, Nora came to dinner at his penthouse, exhausted from a case involving a housing nonprofit that had been robbed from the inside. She mentioned that her firm lacked access to a certain database. Gabriel's mind moved instantly. "I know someone who can get you that." Nora set down her fork. He closed his eyes for 1 second. "I said that too fast. Yes, I am not calling." "Good. I want to." "I know." He opened his eyes. "How long does wanting to interfere last?" Nora took a sip of wine. "I'll let you know when it stops being charming." "It was charming, no, but you looked hopeful." He laughed then, and the sound surprised both of them. The first time Gabriel returned to Elaine Parker's house after the scandal, he came without Miles at the door. Not because there was no risk. Risk had not vanished. It had simply stopped being the only god in the room. Elaine opened the door and studied him through the screen. "No driver tonight. He is down the block," Gabriel admitted. Elaine's mouth twitched. "At least you're honest. I am trying to make it a habit." She let him in. Owen was already in the living room, arms crossed, wearing the same expression he had worn the first night. This time, however, he handed Gabriel a beer. Gabriel accepted it. "Thank you." Owen sat across from him. "I still don't trust you." Gabriel nodded. "I know. But Nora says you're trying." "I am." "She also says you're bad at it." Gabriel looked toward the kitchen where Nora was helping Elaine with plates. "She is accurate." Owen took a drink. After a while he said, "If you hurt her, I can't do much to you." Gabriel looked back at him. "No, but I'll try anyway." Gabriel understood then that this was not a threat. It was love in the only language Owen trusted. "I would expect you to." Dinner was quieter than the first one. Less performance, more breathing room. Elaine watched Gabriel closely, but not with the same fear. She noticed when Nora answered questions and Gabriel did not interrupt. She noticed when Nora disagreed with him and he listened instead of correcting the air around her. She noticed when he helped clear the table and did not act like praise should follow. Later, Elaine found him at the sink, washing a serving dish too carefully. "You know, she said I prayed she would find someone ordinary." Gabriel glanced at her. "I understand. No, you don't." Elaine took a towel and began drying. "Ordinary men can still break hearts. They just don't make headlines doing it." He accepted that. "She is safer away from me," he said. Elaine stopped drying. "Maybe." Gabriel looked down at the dishwater. "But she is not smaller with you," Elaine continued. "That matters to me more than safe." His throat tightened. Elaine's voice softened. "If you love her, do not turn her courage into something you manage." Gabriel looked at Nora through the kitchen doorway. She was laughing at something Owen said, had tilted back cheeks warm from wine and family noise. "I won't," he said. Elaine studied him. This time she seemed to believe he knew what the promise meant. Months passed. The city changed around them, and so did the story people told. At first, Nora could not enter a coffee shop without someone staring. Strangers still recognized her from the photographs. Some were curious, some cruel. Some asked questions they had no right to ask. The old Nora would have folded herself smaller beneath the attention. The new Nora looked them in the eye until they looked away. Gabriel's name remained in headlines, but not the way it once had. Investigations continued. DeMarco men gave statements. Businesses shut down. Some praised Gabriel's cooperation. Others called it strategy. Gabriel did not waste energy correcting either side. He poured that energy into rebuilding a community legal fund for families hurt by predatory contracts. A redevelopment project with real oversight. a scholarship in his mother's name for students studying financial crime, public interest law, and urban agriculture. When Nora saw the last category, she looked up from the proposal, urban agriculture. Gabriel did not blink. People should know how to grow things. You created a scholarship because you murdered a cactus. I am making amends. She laughed so hard she had to sit down. The greenhouse changed too. At first it had been Gabriel's secret, a room built against his father's memory. Then it became a place where Nora brought take-out legal pads and her shoes kicked off beside the lemon trees. Slowly it became less perfect. A cracked pot she refused to throw away, a blanket over the bench, a mug that said numbers do not lie, people do. A basil plant from her apartment that should have died but somehow did not. One evening, Gabriel found Nora standing beneath the glass roof looking at the white roses. Snow fell softly over the city. I have something for you, he said. She turned suspicious at once. That sentence has a luxury problem. He held out an envelope. No diamonds. She took it. Inside was the original cleaning receipt from the black suit she had ruined at Madison's party. Attached to it was her payment plan, the paper worn at the folds. At the bottom, in Gabriel's handwriting, were 4 words, paid in full with interest. Nora looked up. What interest? Gabriel stepped closer but left space between them. My life. Her breath caught. He took a small box from his pocket, but he did not open it yet. I need to say this before I ask. Nora's hand closed around the receipt. Gabriel had faced judges, rivals, federal agents, and men who wanted him dead. None of it had felt like this. Nothing had ever required more courage than standing before one woman with nothing to offer except the truth. I do not want to own your life, he said. I do not want to choose your roads. I do not want to call fear love and dress it in better clothes. Nora's eyes filled. Gabriel lowered himself to one knee. I want to build a life where you can leave any room you want and still choose to come home to me. The city blurred behind the snow. Nora covered her mouth, but she did not answer. Gabriel waited. She lowered herself to her knees in front of him so they were eye to eye. I have conditions, she said. His chest tightened with something almost like joy. Of course you do. No secrets that put me in danger. Yes. No violence hidden behind my name. Yes. No deciding what is best for me without me. Yes. And if you ever buy my apartment building, I am leaving you immediately. A laugh broke out of him, rough and breathless. That is fair. I mean it. I know. Nora looked at the ring box, then at him. Ask me. Gabriel opened the box. The ring was not enormous. Not the kind of ring Madison would have chosen for photographs. It was simple antique with a pale diamond set between 2 small emerald stones that reminded Nora of the greenhouse after rain. Nora Parker Gabriel said, his voice low. Will you marry me? She touched his face. Yes. He slid the ring onto her finger with hands that were steady until the moment she kissed him. Then all his control vanished. The wedding took place in early autumn on a restored estate outside Galena, Illinois, where the hills rolled soft and gold beneath a clear sky. Gabriel could have filled a cathedral with powerful people. Nora could have invited every relative who had ever asked whether she was seeing anyone. Instead, they chose a smaller ceremony under old trees with white flowers, wooden chairs, and wind moving through the grass. Madison came in pale blue, quieter than Nora had ever seen her. Before the ceremony, she found Nora near an upstairs window adjusting her veil. You look beautiful, Madison said. Nora smiled gently. Thank you. Madison twisted her hands. I was awful to you for a long time. Nora did not rescue her from the discomfort. Yes, Madison swallowed. I think I liked you better when I could feel above you. Nora met her eyes in the mirror. And now? Now I am embarrassed. That is a start. Madison gave a shaky laugh. I am sorry. Nora turned to face her. You don't get to admire me only after someone powerful does. Madison's eyes filled. I know. Nora let the silence settle, then reached for her bouquet. I accept your apology, but we are not skipping the part where you become better. Madison nodded. Downstairs, Frank sat stiffly in the second row, looking uncomfortable in daylight. Miles stood near the back, scanning the tree line by habit, until June told him to stop frightening the florist. Vivian Cole arrived just before the music began, elegant in dark green, and handed Nora a folded note. Nora read it alone. Some women become cages, some become keys. Be careful which one he asks you to be and which one you agree to become. Nora folded the note and placed it inside her bouquet. When she walked down the aisle, Gabriel forgot the rules of breathing. He stood beneath an arch of white roses, sunlight touching his dark suit, and watched the woman who had once ruined another suit walk toward him without fear. Elaine cried before Nora reached the halfway point. Owen tried not to. Gabriel did. Only once. Only when Nora placed her hand in his and whispered, "Still time to run." He whispered back, "I would rather learn to stay." Their vows were simple. Nora promised truth, not obedience. Partnership, not performance. Love that did not make either of them smaller. Gabriel promised honesty, restraint, and a home with unlocked doors. He promised to ask when fear told him to command. He promised to build more than he destroyed. When they kissed, the guests applauded, but for Nora the sound faded behind the wind in the trees, and Gabriel's hand trembling around hers. 2 years later, the Moretti name still carried weight, but it no longer entered rooms before Gabriel did. He and Nora split their time between Chicago and a restored farmhouse in Michigan wine country. The house had old wood floors, wide windows, and a greenhouse Gabriel claimed was smaller than the one in the city, though Nora insisted it was only less dramatic. Their daughter, Lily Grace Moretti, was 18 months old and already suspicious of shoes. One late spring morning, Nora stood at the open kitchen door holding a mug of coffee while sunlight spilled over the garden. She wore one of Gabriel's old shirts, her hair loose, her bare feet cold against the floorboards. Outside, Gabriel crouched beside Lily in the greenhouse, showing her how to press seeds into soil. Lily poked the dirt with serious concentration. "Gentle," Gabriel said. The little girl ignored him and grabbed a fistful of soil. Nora laughed softly. Gabriel looked up at the sound. Even after everything, that look still found her first. Nora crossed the yard and stepped into the greenhouse. The air smelled of earth, tomato leaves, and warm glass. Lily held up her dirty hand. "Mama, I see that," Nora said, very professional. Gabriel brushed soil from Lily's sleeve with the patience of a man who had once been feared for other uses of his hands. Lily pointed at the small hole in the soil. Why? Gabriel looked at Nora, then back at his daughter. "We put the seed in the dark so it can grow toward the light." Nora leaned against the table. "That is almost poetic. I practice. You used to threaten people. I have range." She smiled. Lily dropped the seed into the hole. Gabriel covered it gently with soil. For a moment, Nora saw every version of him at once. The man in the black suit at Lake Forest. The man in the greenhouse above Chicago. The man in the parking garage who chose not to kill. The man on one knee with the old receipt in his hand. The father teaching their daughter that buried things were not always dead. Sometimes they were waiting for the right hands, the right season, the right light. Gabriel stood and lifted Lily onto his hip. Their daughter pressed a muddy palm against his white shirt. Nora laughed. "That shirt is ruined." Gabriel looked down at the stain, then at Nora. A slow smile touched his mouth. "I have experience with that." Nora stepped close and brushed a bit of dirt from his sleeve. "Should I start a payment plan?" Gabriel bent his head until his forehead touched hers. "No," he said. "This one is priceless." Outside, the wind moved through the vines. No black cars waited at the curb. No headlines flashed her name across the city. No one stood in the shadows deciding what love should cost. There was only the greenhouse, the warm soil, their daughter laughing between them, and a man who had once believed fear lasted longer than love. Nora took his hand. In the soil below them, the seed rested in darkness. Above it, light waited.